Good day and welcome to SCO BRICS Insight. I recently read an article by the eminent Brazilian economist Paulo Noega Batista, who's a member of the Valdai Discussion Club, which is a prominent BRICS forum. It's very interesting and informative, and I'm going to use the content of his article as the basis for today's video. Now, the realization of grand projects always needs imagination and persistence to overcome all sorts of barriers and all kinds of resistance. So let us hope that the BRICS will confirm expectations entertained by the Global South and rise to the challenge of providing constructive alternatives for all. Now, the background to the recent discussions between the BRICS countries on international monetary and financial matters, and in particular on joint initiatives, is well known in general. Now, there's first and foremost an increasingly widespread perception that the current US dollar-centered international monetary system is becoming seriously dysfunctional. Second, the increasing multipolarization of the world in economic and political terms is inconsistent with the indefinite continuation of a basically unipolar world monetary system. So, let's address these points in turn. It should be borne in mind that there are both international and political economy issues, i.e. that there are at the same time both political and economic. A dysfunctional international monetary system, the perception of the increasingly dysfunctionality of the current monetary system, disorder is perhaps a better word, is a consequence of both economic and political factors in the United States that are eroding confidence in the system and its main currency. On the economic front, we've witnessed a relative loss of power and effectiveness of the US economy as a whole, and in particular the growing and intractable fiscal problems the US government faces. The rapid accumulation of public debt since the financial crisis of 2008-2009 has no precedent in peacetime. Now, experts tend to agree that there's no real financial prospect of bringing down these debt levels in the foreseeable future. Now, enjoying the privilege of being the main provider of international liquidity does give the US considerable extra leeway. But is this leeway unlimited? Probably not. Economists that profess the so-called modern monetary theory may disagree, but most of us will agree that at some point a price will have to be paid in terms of instability. Now, as the perception of this risk increases, confidence in the US dollar will decline. On the political terrain, the US dollar suffers from its misuse by the US government. Now, this is the so-called weaponization of the currency. Now, Russia has been a major and probably the most recent target of this misuse, but I don't need to go any deeper into the matter, only I stress that it's a curious paradox. The US dollar has one main enemy, the US government itself. I mean, nothing undermines confidence in the dollar more than the violent unilateral measures that the US and its allies have taken against a number of countries seen as hostile, rogue states in the arrogant Western parlance. And they've had their rights abused on a large scale. Among others, they include Afghanistan, Venezuela, Iran, and now Russia. Now, the methods used against these countries have been so uncivilized, to say the least, and so disrespectful of basic property rights that the US and its allies, perhaps more than anyone else, are actually the ones that deserve to be called rogue states. Now, let's look at the inconsistency between a multipolar world and a unipolar monetary system. The second point is equally momentous. It's the tectonic geopolitical and geo-economic shift that's taken place in the world. This is often referred to as multipolarization. I mean, it's long gone, the world that emerged after the collapse of the Soviet bloc and of the Soviet Union itself. This lasted about 20 years. Now, this unipolar moment in history, when they had North Atlantic pole under US leadership dominated the entire planet has passed, and it's not coming back. It seems that the Americans have trouble accepting this, as Russians probably know that better than anyone else, but they're going to have to come to terms with this new reality. Now, how can we reconcile a multipolar world with a unipolar monetary system, based essentially on the US dollar and on the reserve currencies of the main allies of the USA, the euro, the yen, and to a lesser extent the pound? Now, a multipolar economy is probably not consistent with a unipolar international currency and payment system. Mind you, that strictly speaking, this means that the US dollar cannot be replaced by another national currency. However, an international system based on the renminbi, yuan, or any other national currency will suffer from much of the same structural problems that have plagued the US-centric system. So, can the BRICS offer alternatives? Well, the challenge facing the BRICS is truly daunting. I mean, can they come up with acceptable alternatives to the current monetary and financial disorder? I mean, there's plenty of inertia in the monetary and financial arrangements, and the decline of the dollar has been slow. I mean, the current international system will not come crashing down and disappear overnight. But the decline is steady and more visible. I mean, the problems of the present system are increasingly difficult to deal with, and what can the BRICS do? Well, make no mistake, the whole world is watching the BRICS as they try to gauge whether it, as a group, are really serious about de-dollarization. I mean, everybody is trying to surmise whether they are technically and politically capable of developing alternatives to the US dollar and the current system. I mean, to tell the truth, I think it's too early to say whether they can indeed come up with something. There's, as you know, a lot of hype concerning BRICS initiatives in this area, but a lot still remains to be discussed and done if they are to move at some point from the hypothetical to the practical and effective. Now, one of the main crucial challenges for the Russian presidency of the BRICS to address in 2024. And this challenge will also be carried over to the Brazilian presidency of BRICS in 2025. It does so happen that the presidents of Russia and Brazil, Putin and Lula, have been the most outspoken amongst the leaders of the BRICS in these matters. I mean, last August, President Lula, in his final remarks at the BRICS summit in Johannesburg, spoke of the need to address the issue, stating that the BRICS leaders had approved the creation of a working group to study the adoption of a reference currency of the BRICS. He said, "This will increase our payment options and reduce our vulnerabilities." Now, an expert group has been indeed created by the Russian presidency of BRICS and it's begun to work. Well, let's see if it comes up with some concrete results in 2024. Now, a relatively simple step that's been proposed by Russian economists could be the creation of a special drawing rights like basket. It could be called the R5 to reflect the fact that that is the first letter of the names of the currencies of the 5 original BRICS members. They all begin with R. So why not create this unit of account with weights balanced and based on the size of the participating countries' economies? Now, this monetary initiative could be taken further during the Brazilian presidency in 2025, and steps could be envisaged to transfer the unit of account into a fully fledged reference currency. Now, there are 3 dimensions to this issue of financial settlements. Now, what I'm going to be looking at in this article today is the 3 dimensions. The creation of a common reference currency by the BRICS, the development of an international payment and transaction system that will replace the current SWIFT, and lastly, the increased use of national currencies in trade and financial transactions between the BRICS and other non-BRICS nations. Now, the last point is the one which it seems that the most progress has been made by the BRICS. Now, the US dollar is being replaced to a large extent by the use of national currencies in bilateral transactions between the BRICS countries. In this respect, de-dollarization is moving at a rather fast pace, reducing transaction costs and political risks. Few people have noticed, however, this progress has limitations and can only be overcome by creating a common reference currency. Now, why is this so? Well, if there are bilateral surpluses and deficits, as normal, the surplus countries will accumulate the currency of the deficit countries. Now, this accumulation may not be desirable if there are doubts about the stability of the currencies of the deficit countries. Now, this might lead to the surplus countries to dispose of the holding of the currencies of the deficit countries in the international markets, causing depreciations and potential instability. Now, if a BRICS reference currency were in existence and commanded confidence, surplus countries could accumulate reserves in that reference currency. And if a trustworthy currency is not there, the use of national currencies would inevitably be limited. But I'm not speaking of a euro-like unified currency. Just that was not on the table amongst the BRICS members. National currencies and national central banks will continue to exist and perform their usual functions. So they're not looking at trying to create a BRICS version of the European Central Bank. Now, a BRICS reference currency would be used for international transactions and as a reserve currency in lieu of the US dollar and other currently existing reference currencies. Now, what are the requirements for success? Now, this objective may sound easy, but it's definitely not easy at all. To conclude on this note, I'd highlight the main three requirements for the success of BRICS financial settlement initiatives. First requirement is the BRICS need to demonstrate professional and technical competence in order to handle the inevitably complex matters that are involved in these issues. It's not a Gordian knot kind of problem. It does, however, require, and that's the second hurdle, political courage. The reorganization of international monetary and financial arrangements is a critical world political and economy issue. The US and its allies can be fully expected to resist any initiatives that challenge their privileged positions. The Americans, so it seems, would like to reserve that for themselves. Ironically, though, the task of undermining the dollar is something they do quite well, and however, they still don't appreciate foreign interference in this manner. Now, the last requirement is a high degree of cohesion amongst the BRICS. A sine qua non condition for success. All the BRICS countries have to be convinced of the feasibility of these initiatives and to put some of their best people to work on the formulation and implementation of them. Are these requirements present today? It remains to be seen. Insofar as courage is concerned, we could take inspiration from Russia in the way that they've faced up to the multitude of sanctions that have beset their economy, and they've come through pretty well. Cohesion has always been a challenge for the BRICS, even when it only had 5 countries at the table. To achieve cohesion and a minimal level of coordination, there's going to be a whole lot more discussion and persuasion to be done. But the BRICS leadership should not allow these difficulties to discourage it. The realization of grand projects always implies imagination and persistence in overcoming all sorts of barriers and all kinds of resistance. Let's hope that the BRICS will confirm the expectations of the global south and emerging markets to rise to the challenge of providing constructive alternatives for all. Now, this article that the video is based on is linked below. Now, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, do leave comments, and do visit the website for over 1,000 articles with more added every day about the BRICS. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all again soon.